Travis Wayne Goodsall. Mormons, if YouTube allowed you to see my video and you made the choice to click on my video, are you capable of sitting and listening to me rather than being tribal and abusive, using your opinions to refuse to listen, to refuse to believe, and ignore and deny the facts of reality? We are talking about a serious subject in this video: Armageddon, where the scriptures tell us the day that shall burn as an oven. Are you going to put aside your pettiness to listen? I am ruining my sleep for the night, screwing up my run in the morning. I'm concerned about how long this video is going to be. I've been taking notes to try to keep it as short as possible. I've got over 8.7K videos over the whole latter days that are now over with. We're waiting for Armageddon. On my computer screen, when I turn on my computer and have to sign in, I have a nuclear blast picture that I've had the whole latter days. Because I knew what the solar eclipse meant on the 21st of August 2017. I knew this was it. My channel changed so that I would share with you the knowledge that I had obtained, so that you would be warned, so that you can be prepared, so that you can be safe. And if you're brand new, yeah, the enemy knows me. As Mormons are incapable of sitting and listening to a serious subject. It's not entertaining for you. Are you able to do it without my picture memes, above and beyond the one? All of the video clips from the church prophet's lips, from Trump, from the news, from other sources where applicable, assuming that YouTube doesn't try to falsely claim their copyright violation as a clip. Dear God, I have been too greatly abused because of my knowledge and sharing this with you guys. The enemy does not want you to live. The enemy wants you dead. I was working on these notes, watching Belmar's new rules and overtime. And those of you who have been following, even recently, I've been redoing it, knows that the facts are that the church is prostituting you. The church is sexually abusing you. You need to get out of that kind of toxic relationship. As Bill Maher says, prior to the Me Too movement, it's understandable why you stayed in the church, because of fear. You get further abused physically, financially, for standing up and telling the church to leave you alone. The Protect LDS Children bishop, who was excommunicated simply for asking the presidency to have the questions for little kids be the same as for adults. And he got excommunicated. He was able to rally a massive group of people, I of which was one of them, to demand that the church stop the abuse of children. And all they did was grant the same questions to children, minus the adult exclusive stuff, and allow women and children to have an escort to protect them against the bishops, men not. But then they went and did other abuses in its place, and all of you missed it. I have other videos that I had come up with today. One, you should have seen the morning video, because it's still the 30th, even though we're an hour away from midnight. Maybe the theme song should be 2 minutes to midnight. But I had Benson's Secret Combination for Great Classics. I stopped those because even though they were very popular, they were not transferring over to the regular videos I do. People only came to see the words of the living prophets and go, yeah, I fully agree with this. Or Mormons think that it's AI and not the actual words of the prophets and put a thumbs down. I have seen many abusive comments over the decades, as it seems, and many stupidity from Mormons. Church is genocidally murdering Mormons. There's another one. AI, Rise Zion. He responded to my video. Either he found it or somebody narked on him, on me. And so he then put in, Adam on Diamond may have already happened. In response to my video of his video. Hilarious. And then spiritual witness feelings versus studying the scriptures, the battle for truth. But instead, Latter Day's Armageddon won out. Because of the news that I heard tonight. On the 28th of April, Trump signed an executive order requiring that a list be made by today of all of the sanctuary cities and states in the United States that are not complying with Trump. And if you've been following me all this year, since Trump took over and gave his inaugural speech, Utah got exposed as a sanctuary state. Utah has been trying to cover it up and lie to the federal government, to Trump's government, that they're not a sanctuary state. And Cox has now been confirmed as having insiders in our government, where he is able to bypass Trump's executive orders for the state of Utah. There are over 600,000 Utahns who are on Trump's deportation list. Utah is a sanctuary state. I did the first presidency message, in which Nelson, Oaks, and Irene came out and said, yep, we're going to give aid and comfort to terrorists, criminals, undocumented, and their families. We will not stop. And so what that told me is that Cox is only given a certain amount of information, which I already knew. I did those videos for you too. But now I know what level of information Cox is being given by Nelson. Remember, we're Latter-day Saints. We're all about the latter days. We're all about what you believe, because you're not studying. You're using spiritual witness feelings from what the presidents of the church and prophets of the church keep repeating over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, and have you not read and comprehend what you read, so that you believe it's the second coming of Jesus. And like AI Rise Zion, that Adam on Diamond may have already happened. And so we're going to cover what Cox apparently is doing and what level of knowledge he has been given. Because he can't be given the full amount of knowledge, especially if Trump comes in and destroys Utah. According to prophecy. Because if he's captured, he may squeal. So yeah, that's the hierarchy of knowledge that I've gone over with you. The higher you go, the more you're let in on the bigger picture. So, I was born and raised in the Covenant Mormon, with parents, both of whom were born and raised in the Covenant Mormon. Both served missions. Both were extremist and strict. Thus, I turned out to be rebellious. Not apostate, rebellious against the extremism. So when I read about the Pharisees confronting Jesus, I'm able to say, oh, yeah, my parents. Yeah, the church. I'm able to understand my scriptures as a kid and make that connection. Oh, Lucifer's plan of happiness was to take away the agency of life, liberty, and property. I see the pattern matches. I'm able to understand the doctrine. As I get baptized and I get told about Joseph Smith and the first vision, who's not baptized, does not have the Holy Ghost, and is standing in the presence of the full brightness of the glory of Heavenly Father and Jesus, when Jesus isn't even named. I'm smart enough as a little kid to know, how did he do it? Because no man can see the face of God and live unless he has been baptized, received the Holy Ghost, and endowed through the temple. And that and other questions as I would read my scriptures. done numerous videos of all scriptural topics. As a child, the latter days was the one topic, after failing to find where the Ark of the Covenant was, and confirm that dragons are real. That was of my greatest interest. On my New York mission, I had plenty of time to read my Bible. And I'm not one who reads for entertainment purposes. For me, reading is studying. That's how I was taught in school. We get a textbook, we have to basically memorize it, and so for me, I have to read it and put it into an associative memory. Because memorization and regurgitation of the textbook and the teachers reading from the textbook in class kind of pissed me off, because that's not what intelligence gaining is. A person who knows how to memorize is only good for Jeopardy. Studying your scriptures was what our scriptures were designed for, as I was among the first wave with the brand new edition of the Quad with footnotes, Bible Dictionary, and Topical Guide. And so my seminary years of early morning were teaching me how to use the study aids and the footnotes in our scripture study. And so I understood that the scripture mastery cards were a focus of particular subjects, because you can't do a thorough study of everything. I could understand that. And so I understood that I am to learn this process of knowing the context, knowing the historical background, knowing the ancient language, and knowing and comprehending what the scripture passage says. And so, yes, my studies involved annotation. And that pissed off Linda. She made me promise not to study a book that she wanted me to read just for entertainment purposes, and I couldn't make that promise. But that's how I was raised. TV watching, music listening. I'm learning. Because when my brother was born, 1.5 years later, he had colic. And so my mom had to take care of him 24/7. And so in order to take care of me, they bought a TV and plopped me in front of it. So Sesame Street became my teacher. And now PBS is in jeopardy of losing Sesame Street, as they're now suing Trump for pulling the federal funding for it to make it free. But the latter days was highlighted in purple on my mission, as I came to find out, to my surprise, that the Old Testament had a whole ton of latter-day prophecies. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there. When I came back, having made the one and only one regret of not marrying Leanne Murdoch, and settling for the first wife, who put me in a catch-22 of a no-win situation. We aren't getting into that. My life was then placed in a manner that I could learn everything that I wanted to learn for the latter days. And that's when I began to realize that my patriarchal blessing was more than just my New York mission. As I've done those videos too about my patriarchal blessing. I became the foremost anthropologist of the ancient Middle East. Because I study scriptures in the latter days was something I wanted to know. And there was a whole ton of it in the Old Testament. And so yes, the ancient Middle East was fascinating to me. As the Book of Mormon talks about Hebrew and Egyptian, the Book of Abraham is in Egyptian, and everybody says Joseph Smith is not a translator. He got it wrong. It was just spiritual witness feelings. I didn't grow up with that. I grew up with studying, reading, and understanding what I read. When Joseph Smith says that the King Follett, in the King Follett sermon, that the biblical Hebrew text is wrong, that it should be Elohim all the way through, and that the first letter was added in, he's either right or he's wrong. No other explanations of nonsense is allowed. And so I was now given an opportunity to learn from the foremost expert in the field. And sure enough, Joseph Smith is right, as I also became the decipherer of Paleo-Hebrew. Last couple of weeks, academia has had a couple of dumbasses who didn't believe who I am and thought that they would try to trap me into a con, just as the men who created the Kinderhook plates thought that they were going to fool Joseph Smith. And I did that video again not too long ago. Joseph was brilliant. But you have to know your book of Abraham. Joseph had only published it in the Times and Seasons in 1842, and so they didn't know about it. They just had heard. And so anthropology is the umbrella for every single science. Even though education in anthropology specifically is treated as a separate science from all the other sciences. Because if you were to go into the full learning of anthropology on a period of time, you'd have to spend the rest of your life memorizing every single field of science. I don't have time for that. I have associative memory. And so I can go beyond just the ancient Middle East. I can go to any culture at any period of time. And so, knowing that we were in the latter days, I also did my research and videos for you on the real church history. And this year I've had to repeat that information for you in a few videos so far this year, because the coming forth of the Book of Mormon is for that whole purpose. Because Joseph Smith was told that they that come shall burn us. So the Book of Mormon was written to save us. And so, yes, it is sad that Mormons do not study their scriptures, that they have been taught incorrectly and miseducated on Moroni chapter 10, verses 3 through 5. That they are incapable of understanding it correctly and taking it out of the context of the rest of all of Scripture. An enemy, in order to be successful, must keep a people dumb. Because they're more easily conned. So, it is necessary for you to be reminded, and if this is your first time, you are way behind. I cannot go into the details of all this information. This is just a summary, an actual, even summary of a summary, a notation rather than the summary. But the enemy, as I've gone over with you guys, is the Illuminati. On May 1st, 1776, Johann Adam Weishaupt and his band of 5 merry men, they knew that the Jewish scriptures contained the dates for the latter days. Kind of obvious when Revelation chapter 12 uses the sun, moon, stars, and constellations. But because of the great stranglehold on intelligence by the Holy Roman Empire of Roman Emperor Constantine, all this time Christians have been ignorant and clueless that when the scriptures talk about the sun, moon, stars, and constellations, that the Jews are giving you an actual precise day and hour date. And I even had a dumbass comment today about how a total solar eclipse is only about 7 minutes. Yeah, people just showed up for 7 minutes and then left. The whole process is an hour, you dumbass. This is what I've had to deal with. People who think that they're smarter because they've been misinformed, like ChatGPT. and AI. And I cringe over time. The congressman, oh yeah, in a couple of years, it'll be so smart. God. Oh my God. No. It's a con game. It is not artificial intelligence. That's what they, the creators, called it. To fool you. You know, like makeup for women. It makes you look like you're natural. It's a consumer fraud. We know this, but anyway. And so this Illuminati group developed the pattern of practice of infiltrate, rise up in number, rise up in rank, take over leadership, destroy, create a new world order for each and every single group, all the way up to governments themselves. And so, as they had found out about the Revolutionary War in America, yeah, excellent opportunity to destroy America and make America Great Britain again, to return to a monarchy. And so in 1800, they had attempted to get into America and cause an attack. And then again in the War of 1812. In the War of 1812, William Morgan had found out about their whole plot. And the Book of Mormon reveals how detailed William Morgan knew about this plot. Remember, the latter days are over. I've been doing the videos all these years, over 8.7K. The Book of Mormon is true. Accurately true. You can't see it because you don't believe it. You have trusted in the living prophets of Jesus who have lied to you. The very first date is the same date as Revelation chapter 12. It tells you it's a date. Sun, moon, stars, and constellations. Right there in the first chapter of the Book of Mormon. And so instead of studying to find the truth, Mormons create tribes to have it them or the other. And that's why Mormons are incapable of just listening to my videos, because they get offended with the thumbnail picture or the title of the video and come to attack me, already with a preconceived judgment that I'm wrong, and they're going to find out what it is, and then they're going to make a dumbass comment for which I'll do a comment reply video and expose how dumb they are. And so for Mormons, it becomes an us versus them mentality. You're either faith promoting for the church, despite what the texts say, never running the test that scriptures tell you to run, or you're the enemy of the church. And then Mormons can then justify being abusive. And it's sad that Mormons don't understand that that's Lucifer's tactics. And maybe they do understand. Maybe Mormons are knowingly evil. I would hope not. That's why I keep doing videos rather than just saying bleep you all and doing my own thing. But there's a danger in that, because I live in Utah. I will not be free ever because of what I'm going to be getting into and covering here. The Illuminati was infiltrating the Scottish Rites Freemasonry in America, which apparently seems to be how William Morgan found out about it. He was in a Scottish Rites meeting, learning all about this plot. And so he moved to Western New York and had found the Batavian Press with David Miller, who agreed to front him the money to work on the book. And it had to be encoded, because this is a war. There is a secret combination seeking to overthrow the United States of America and ultimately the world. And it was necessary that nobody find out about it, that the book gets published, and that those who are in Freemasonry of the York Rites would be the ones to know the secret encoding that would be in it. And so he had a home there in Batavia with his wife and children, but he needed to do the book somewhere else to protect his family. And he found a fellow York Rite Master Mason of the Ontario Lodge number 23 in Canandaigua, New York, Joseph Smith Sr. And so 9/11/1826 is when Sr. got activated to save the life of William Morgan and finish the book, and then have to sacrifice Joseph Smith and Hiram to be the ones to establish the church. It's a situation where you're proud to have your sons do it, and at the same time knowing that they were going to be assassinated. I don't know if that was an easy decision for him. Clearly he was upset with Joseph over the 116 pages. But nonetheless, and so the enemy found out, though. And like the Illuminati pattern of practice, they rose up in number in Joseph's church, rose up in rank, obtained leadership positions, and then destroyed it. And then new religious order under Brigham Young. We all know they called themselves the Danites, true Mormons. Thomas B. Marsh would expose them in 1838. They told him their plot, just like William Morgan found out in the Scottish Rites meeting. That's why it's the mystic tie in Jacob chapter 7. Brethren, ado, not ado. You have to include brethren. Thomas B. Marsh helped us expound upon their plot for the latter days. As 1838, these Danites did exactly the same pattern that has already been repeated for the latter days. The decertification of the election, election tampering, threatening a judge and a sheriff to overturn the election, breaking out in a civil war, murdering the men, raping the women, burning the villages, and taking all the loot to Adam-on-Diamond, which was their secret headquarters. Because it's Joseph Fielding Smith Sr. who exposes Adam-on-Diamond as code for their latter-day attack. Joseph Smith Sr., being the son of Hiram Smith, was not privy to the information that the Danites gave to Thomas B. Marsh, who betrayed them. They encoded it with Jesus for Joseph Fielding Smith Sr. and other Mormons who were not in the immediate Danite group. And so the way to perfection helps confirm this encoding by the Brighamite Church, that when they're talking about the latter days, the second coming of Jesus Christ, Adam-on-Diamond and the priesthood meeting, that you need to use the Danite encoder. You don't get that from a Cracker Jack box. Nobody is supposed to know of this plot. Again, only the president of the church and his counselors are to know everything. And yet, Joseph Fielding Smith Sr. didn't. Very interesting. That was during the dark ages of Mormonism, when the United States of America had dissolved the church. They did not exist on the face of the earth. And yet the prophets lied to Mormons that they were still around. No. And still to this day, they are an illegal operation. I gotta go over scriptures here for you anyway. We're already at 45 minutes. Section 101. Joseph gives you a parable. This was December 16th, 1833. And so technically, section 45 is earlier. Let's go to that one first. March 7th. 1831. That was the date for the sign in the east of the coming of the Christ. And here he is, talking about the coming of the Christ. Let's see. We want to go to around 63. Yeah, 66. And so he's talking about Zion and New Jerusalem, a land of peace, a city of refuge, a place of safety for the saints of the Most High God, those who are members of Joseph Smith's church. This is March 7th, 1831. 139 years before. And the glory of the Lord shall be there, and the terror of the Lord shall also be there, insomuch that the wicked will not come unto it. You need to put a note in your mind or on paper or in your scriptures to reference section 119 on tithing, verses 5 and 6. The wicked will not come into Zion. Big difference from section 119. We will be covering that. I'm already feeling it. And it shall come to pass among the wicked that every man that will not take his sword against his neighbor must needs flee unto Zion for safety. This is important for what I heard in the news and what it means for what Cox's level of being in the inner circle of knowledge reveals where he is. If you peel an onion as layers, we now know the layer of Cox because of what the news came out with today. That Utah is not on the list as a sanctuary state, when everybody knows it is. Cox has an inside man in Homeland Security or elsewhere that Mormon kept Utah off that list. That could end up causing more damage as a result. Because again, section 119, verses 5 and 6. Cox does not know his scriptures. This is very obvious. He's actually going against the wishes of Nelson and Oakes. Very interesting of how this is playing out. This is Armageddon that Joseph Smith is talking about. World War III. Not just a civil war in America. Everybody is fighting. And that Zion is going to be the only place on the face of the earth that is not at war. And so obviously it can't be Utah, because the wicked anti-Mormon, anti-Christ, apostate Korah whores are here in Utah. It's one of those no-brainers. This is why Cox is not being obedient. But he has to be kept out of the loop so that Cox, if he is caught, when Trump realizes what Utah is doing, that Cox won't give up the church, won't give up the plot of the church. They've already got my information from the church, for the church. I'm so pissed that they aren't listening to me. It's just so frustrating. Okay? And so it continues again to repeat, it shall be said among the wicked, let us not go up to battle against Zion. For the inhabitants of Zion are terrible, wherefore we cannot stand. The wicked cannot tolerate living in Zion. That's why it will be a safe place. And so 71 also needs to be taken in the context of what the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints says concerning the gathering, and section 119 with verse 71 here in 45. And it shall come to pass among the that the righteous shall be gathered out from among all nations, and shall come to Zion. This is the great divide, because the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints wants Mormons to stay where they are. And it's because they know about this plot, because they're the Danites. It's their plot. And that's why Cox, protecting Utah, is going contrary to the will of the church. He does not know the will of the church on this. And so his level of stupidity about the scriptures, let alone of the church's Danite interpretation, could end up hurting their plans, preventing what they were hoping to accomplish here. And thus Joseph Smith is going to be true. The enemy never gets it. Never go up against a seer. You will lose every time. And so, yes, the church is planning to rise up with a new world order, the kingdom. And so when the rest of the world is destroyed, Mormons who survive around the world can be the representatives for the church in those lands, where the church owns land in every nation except for North Korea and Russia. Well, they sort of have Russia. Churches, places to assemble, could be just homes. But the one news clip about the missionaries getting busted for being missionaries, as the sister missionary had her missionary journal, as they're trying to claim that they're not missionaries, and the soldiers show missionary journal. Hilarious. But anyway, that's what the church is planning. They're getting the world to destroy itself. Governments destroyed, economies destroyed, and then the church takes over the world. That's their interpretation. That is not Joseph's. Very plain, pure, and most precious, as that only comes from the Book of Mormon. And if you read your Book of Mormon, you know it. or at least saw the video where I quote it, gave you that reference. Okay, so now we can go to section 101 and his parable prophecy. We'll skip to Armageddon, verse 51. The enemy came by night, broke down the hedge, and the servants of the noblemen arose, that's the prophets, and were affrighted and fled. Governor Cox, naughty boy. And the enemy destroyed their works. But they are the enemy. How could that be? We are seeing in real time how this is going to be. And broke down the olive trees. Mormons. And I always wondered, scattered. How are Mormons going to be scattered? We're already scattered around the world. Trump deportation. Fascinating. And yet, this is where Cox is screwing things up. But first we have to go to, before we go to section 119, we gotta go over 19 July 1840. The source for the Mormon myth of the government hanging by a thread. This is from the Joseph Smith papers. Church had no problem having it published. They just won't talk about it. So Mormons will never know about it unless you search and study the Joseph Smith papers. And they know that Mormons won't. And if you are new, I have an academia page. And on the academia page, I have this for you, footnoted and chaptered with verses. So the original was not edited because Brigham Young wanted nothing to do with this, because he's exposed as the enemy by Joseph Smith. It's a brilliant way to expose him too, using the last day's supper of Jesus from Mark. Joseph Smith is awesome. It's too bad Mormons don't believe. These are facts, Mormons, and you don't believe it. All these years, I've been giving you the scriptures, the words of the prophets, and how they violate the scriptures, and straight from the Joseph Smith papers. And because I am not faith promoting, you refuse to accept and believe. The great classics, Mormons refuse to believe. It's only their words, and you don't like it. It's as if you don't believe that they actually said that at the pulpit of conference. That's messed up for a Mormon to live in denial when it's their own prophets' words that they're finally listening to. So, 19 July 1840, Joseph Smith is expanding upon and commenting on verse 51 that I just read to you from the parable in section 101. And so that's why the footnote 6a, D&C 101, verse 51. Then the enemy shall come as a thief in the night. Danites say it's Jesus. And broke down the hedge, and the servants of the nobleman arose and were affrighted and fled, and thus the enemy did scatter the servants abroad. I don't know why Royal Skousen couldn't put in section 101 verse 51, other than he didn't know that that was where it came from. He should have. I think they do, but he wasn't intelligent enough to know that the missing portion in the 1840 version could just have been put in. Real simple to do. And fled, and thus the enemy did scatter the servants abroad. And before the second coming of Trump, I was like, what? I don't understand. How is this going to happen? They're already scattered. So is he going back and forth in his time prophecy? Nope. You need to trust Joseph. He knows the plot. This was the plot. The church is going to have the enemy come to Utah as a thief in the night and destroy Utah. Destroy Temple Square. That they are going to flee. And that Mormons will be deported. This was all part of their plot. And so I kind of wondered if this meant that the church was going to try to claim insurance for the destruction, or were they going to be conveniently out of Utah when it happens and thus flee, or if they're gonna, if the actual fleeing is them realizing, oh crap, we got busted, and that wasn't part of their plot. Because Nelson and the prophets are, for the most part, well, we're getting to it. Probably for another 3 hours from now, but we're getting to it. And so, yes, apparently the nations of the world will help with the gathering to Zion. Is what Joseph Smith is then talking about here. And so then Albert Pike comes into play, if you are familiar with his letter to Giuseppe Mazzini. Alrighty. So, November 4th, 2016, I learned of the solar eclipse from Fox 13 News Utah. I knew exactly what that meant. And I began to do a crash course on the latter days, but more specifically began searching scriptures that gave dates to see if I can confirm that now, using 21st of August 2017 as my starting point, and used my rock and a hat, went forward day by day, and soon found it. I then went and checked YouTube, and there was a guy who had found out about it a year before I did. But he didn't understand the interpretation. He didn't understand the context of what it meant. He just knew, oh, yeah, pattern match. That's as far as the Illuminati knew. That's as far as the Danites knew. They know, well, the Danites knew, and the Illuminati knew, that it's supposed to be the date for the coming of the Jewish Christ, even though Christians turned it into the last day of darkness on 8 April 2024 as the coming in the clouds of glory for the first coming, or second coming for them, actually. But that's the full latter-day time period of 7 years. That's why the Jews refer to the coming of the Messiah as restoring the sabbatical years. 7 years for the latter days. That's why Passover and Tabernacles are 7 days, because of the latter days. And then it becomes 8 when you include the first day, or the first year. So 2017 to 2024. And so yes, Revelation 12, which is in the Book of Mormon, which is in Matthew, which comes from Isaiah, which is all over Scriptures, 23rd September 2017. The Jews knew the day. And as I told you, they were correct. It's all happened. Jewish Christ. And so yes, Mormons don't understand what I'm talking about, because you're using Mormon Christian interpretation. You're waiting for Jesus. You don't know that that's the Danite encoding from Christianity. And so, my #1 video still to this day, because the leaders of the church knows exactly what it means. It's getting sore to sit. You notice I'm not being cyber attacked? Yeah, I notice. So it's also a good thing to do it tonight, because in the morning I might have the problems. But this is what happened. This is my July 2017 video going over both the 21st of August 2017 and the 23rd September 2017 from Scripture, prophecy, and revelation of days and hours. Became my #1 video. So the church was in a panic because they know the dates. They were coordinating all of this. And so it scared them that a Mormon figured it out, and not just any Mormon. One who they've had dealings with before. You raised me to be this way. Now you're wanting to punish me? Thomas More's Utopia in action. If you raise me to study the Scriptures, you get what you got. And so, yeah, the church had reached out to YouTube, the Mormon employee down in Utah County. And ordered him to shut me down and silence me all these latter days. As they reached out to others to attack and destroy me, physically, financially, to trying to murder me. The church could not let me be popular, cannot let my information get to you to save your life. They must murder you. They must keep you ignorant. They cannot have their plot of 200 years ruined by the guy that they never believed would come. They knew that the dates were real. They didn't believe the likeness of things on the earth would be real, because they mockingly, the Illuminati and the Downites, willfully chose to be the fulfillment of the enemy, knowing that Jesus would never show, and not believing in a Jewish Christ. They did not believe, but they knew that the astronomy was correct. And so, yes, I have been a thorn in the side to this church. And they have tried to murder me because of it. And there's only one who remains the whole latter days. And I'm starting to lose many of the people who've been around for several years. Where are you guys? You still watching? Or did they get you? So in 2019, Nelson changes the law of chastity to polygamy. Every Mormon knows the Mormon myth that polygamy will be restored in the millennium. And here Nelson was doing it. And Mormons didn't catch it. Except for my second ex. That's pretty pathetic, guys. If she could have figured it out on her own, why couldn't you? So yes, what Section 119 is calling for their version of the millennium is scary. And you do not know the dangers, because it's not just having Utah as the headquarters of the kingdom, and then Mormons around the world building up the kingdom where they are for the church as tributaries to Salt Lake City. But the manner in which the kingdom will be run, and I guess we can go over this. Be Section 119. From the Joseph's, or the 1844 Doctrine and Covenants, Joseph's name is not attached to this. Brigham Young just snuck it in and expected everybody to assume it was by Joseph. He did not put Joseph's name with it. And so, tithing is for the building of the temple and for entrance into the temple. Brigham Young started that. That's what the Jews called the abomination of desolation when the Greeks took over the Jerusalem temple. They tore down the altar, and put their altar in and had their worshiping sacrifices on the altar. And that's why the Jews during the Qumran community, when they're writing about that after the fact, because again, Christianity turned the scriptures into literal histories and put them in chronological order based upon their literal histories with the first creed of Christianity. And thus they made the Bible the way it was, or is. For the Jews, they were all separate books to be understood as prophecies about their Christ in the latter days. And so, yeah, the Greeks also started the practice of paying temple females for sex. And it was under the endowment ceremony of reenacting the creation story of man. And so the men would bring their food and drink offerings to the temple and money to pay the women to reenact the act of creation. Prostitution began with the Greeks, not with Adam. Prostitution is not the oldest career field. And so Brigham Young started that. Destroyed Joseph's altar, put in his altar with his endowment, his underwear, his covenant paths, which are supposed to be kept a secret. The world cannot know of them, or you are punished unto death. And so, yes, women obey their husband. In polygamy, you are to sacrifice your life to protect the church from being prosecuted. And law of the gospel, you can't criticize the leaders of the church, even though they put the Lord's anointed. But that's all of us who get washed and anointed. I'm sure he meant a second anointing, but he didn't specify, or at least we don't have it specified. Because there's also death to America in there. And now it's just the law of consecration for the coup of the government and the establishment of the kingdom, laying the foundation of Zion. And so, yes, all ex-fo nevermos know about for the priesthood, a direct contradiction to all scripture, not just the Book of Mormon, for no priestcraft, and the debts of the presidency of the church. So the presidency are the priesthood, but they also have extra expenditures to force Mormons to pay off. And that's just the beginning. And then you got to pay 10%, and that's been changed to your wages, not your interest annually. Technically, as a wage earner, you are not required to pay tithing because you don't get interest. They don't want you to believe that, obviously. And so, 5 and 6. Those who gather unto the land of Zion shall be tithed of their surplus properties, and shall observe this law, or they shall not be found worthy to abide among you. You gotta get deported. And I say unto you, if my people observe not this law to keep it holy, and by this law sanctify the land. Money is the sanctifying of yourself and of the land. Oh God. That my statutes and my judgments may be kept thereon. So it's beyond tithing. It's polygamy and the 5 laws of the covenant path. And anything else they come up with. That it may be most holy. Behold, verily I say unto you, it shall not be a land of Zion unto you. That's where the death penalty also comes in if you don't just get deported. And so from this we know how Nelson and Oaks are planning for Zion. That there will be an economy in Zion. When the priestcraft passage in the Book of Mormon says there must not be an economy of Zion, otherwise Zion will fall. As Joseph Smith goes into great detail to explain both Malachi and Joseph of Egypt, that every ward with a bishop was supposed to have a storehouse. And even though we're still in the United States and have to render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and thus we have to all have jobs and pay taxes, our interest would go to the storehouse for those who are poor and needy, sick and afflicted, elderly, or widowed, or orphaned, and disabled, and sick and afflicted. I guess we'd fall into that, but yeah. So big difference in running of Zion. As Joseph Smith is starting it up, and at the same time is preparing Mormons for the coming of Zion, that will be independent somehow. That the wicked will not want to go and live there because there's no monetary system of economy. How do you pay for things? How can we cheat and steal? We don't like this. Everybody's treated equally. And so women have to be in a polygamous relationship with a church leader. Not enough women to go for all the men in polygamy. Leaders come first. And because women are witchcraft temptresses, they need to be covered up and hidden. And so they stay home, barefoot, pregnant, away from other men. And whether they get their own home or whether they have to live with their other wives, trust in the Lord, said Dallin H. Oaks after the new change to the law of chastity to polygamy in his October conference, 2019. They lowered the age to 11 years old. — 14 apparently is not good enough for them. But they're preparing for a mass extermination event so that they can go as low as possible to rebuild the human race under the church's law of Zion. And so boys and girls will have to be separated after being weaned. Boarding schools would be the best way to do that until a girl is 11 years old and assigned to a priesthood leader, just like Warren Jeffs did it, and then be removed from society. The boys, however, would be raised up and, if necessary, be sent around the world to help build the kingdom, and thus would need wife for that as a leader of the church. Otherwise, he would need to be a slave to the kingdom to help build it up, to pay for the lavish lifestyle of King Noah and his 12 apostles. Exact same pattern that was already in the Book of Mormon for you, Mormons. This is what's coming. And you, of course, are told not to watch R-rated movies, because the R rating is an evil god that will destroy you, cause you to go blind, harmful to children, blah, blah, blah. So you didn't watch 1984, which is exactly the same process and where Utah got Big Brother from. See something, say something. Big Brother's watching. Big Brother is Nelson right now. Okay. So this is the context you need to know and understand. As Trump is supposed to have deported the anti-Mormon, anti-Christ, apostate Korahors from Utah. Cox stepped in and oops, is now going to make it tougher, which other prophecies from the Book of Mormon talking about how the law of Purim will happen, that Mormons will be fighting amongst each other to destroy the church. That now also is a high probability of happening because Cox interfered. Because if the rest of the nation, if the whole federal government falls under Trump, he hands over authority to the states, 3rd Nephi chapter 7, and Cox hands over the government to the church. The anti-Mormon, anti-Christ, apostate Korahors are going to say, oh, hell no, you already run the nation or the state. We're not making it official. There will be a war. And the church will have to use Cox and the National Guard to quell the rebellion. But it's going to be a lot harder because Cox interfered. So I've got to take a halftime break, and we'll be right back. Okay, so hopefully by now you see how Section 119, as it's being played out, intended for Trump to do the first purge of Utah. As I've been going over these whole latter days, that Utah specifically was trying to make it so unbearable here to kick out as many of the sensitive snowflakes as possible first. But that Trump's second coming, if not his first, which we'll get to here hopefully within the next couple hours, would do the purge so that the church doesn't have to do it. See, the church is stepping back and saying, we're not doing any of this, we're innocent, as other people are doing the work for them. This is, again, the level of knowledge in which those at the bottom don't know anything. And they're the ones, in their ignorance, who are more susceptible to doing what the bully tells you to do. Hey, go put your tongue on that frozen pole. And other stuff of a bullying, abusive nature to get the people at the bottom in trouble, whereas those in the top get away with it. Despite RICO Act in the United States of America since 71, something like that, which replaced the original law for criminal activities by a criminal organization. All right. So 2020 came around. Every single one of the Exodus events occurred. Even the one that the church didn't expect to happen. The man like Moses, the Jewish Christ. All of it happened. And boy, were they pissed at the man like Moses. And sought all ways to destroy him and murder him. They were pissed. And unbeknownst to me and all Mormons, except for a mission president who quoted Oakes on the 14th of August 2020, before it all hit the fan. It was already in the pre-stages, but hadn't hit the fan yet. Who sent that quote to his stake presidents and parents of missionaries. And then little sister Jessica. Because again, one of the hazards of those at the bottom doing the dirty work for you is that you have those at the bottom not knowing of the big plan and leaking it by accident, because they don't know. They don't know that they're leaking what you didn't want leaked. She thought it meant something else. Literally, what it said. She doesn't have the Danite decoder ring. Neither did the mission president. It is important that if you're going to include more people, that you have to factor in these kinds of leaks and potential drawbacks to your overall plot. The human factor screws things up every single time. And so Oakes, using chiasmus, talked about the end of the world, the second coming of Jesus, and said that 2020 and 2021 was going to be a test run for 2024 and 2025. That's what it meant. The second coming of Jesus was not going to be in 2020 as it was supposed to be. The man like Moses showed, but that's Jewish. Not their Danite Christianity. And so understanding this in the context of what has already happened you now see how the church is the great and abominable church. That Oaks knew, and you suffered, and the church didn't. You lost someone you loved as the church got rich off of it. Murder to get gain directly from the scriptures. Master Mahan. They are the enemy. If you cannot accept this fact, we cannot have a reasonable discussion about this serious subject of Armageddon. But if you can't, you've already left a long time ago. You were already offended when I asked you if you were capable of listening to the facts, not using your spiritual witness feelings based upon me being an anti-Mormon, antichrist, apostate, Korah whore, the other. That's why I do introductions at the beginning of my videos. I first entertain you with video clips and picture memes, and then I do an introduction. You know, oh, the fun stuff is over. So this time, no, it's just one picture, and then it's going to be a short picture, as I still need to make it, and I hope I remember. I wrote it down to use it, so we'll see. And so, from my perspective, I knew that 2020 and 2021 was the Exodus year. I did the videos. I was guiding you through it the whole way. And under Biden's administration, it gave YouTube an excuse, the Mormon employee down in Utah County, to justify attacking me on behalf of the church. And so I didn't know that it was a test run. I didn't see Sister Jessica's mission post. I didn't know it was there to begin with. It was not until the end of last year when the YouTube Mormon employee, through his ignorance, thinking he was going to taunt me with recommendations of Mormon faith-promoting videos, that I saw it. Again, the same manner in which Jessica did not know and understand that she should not have leaked it from her mission president, who shouldn't have leaked it. The same thing for the Mormon YouTube employee. He shouldn't have recommended that channel, that video. But he did, out of his ignorance. He's thinking he's gonna taunt me that the church is true, and in reality, he just helped answer what I was struggling to figure out what the hell happened. A test run? He had already seen the videos where I'm saying I quit. I'm retiring. And yet, because of his stupidity at the lower end of the pyramid of knowledge, he made the error that the church did not want him to make. He made the error. And still to this day, he's in denial of it. He refuses to accept responsibility and confess to his bishop for disciplinary action. aiding and abetting an apostate. Under Zion, that would be the death penalty, just so that you know. I warned you. You didn't listen. You didn't believe. And so, in 2022, as in 2021, that's when I found out about Joseph Fielding Smith and the secret combination that the church was using to do all this. And the church got really upset when I found Joseph Fielding Smith's The Way to Perfection. They don't get it. This hierarchy of knowledge as a secret combination is prone to problems and ruining your plot. They don't understand it, I guess. Nonetheless, and so in 2022, for October conference, Nelson comes out and says, in the coming days, again. I had already known the previous ones, and so I again did the videos for everybody. That it was very curious. And so again, I'm still unaware that 2020 and 2021 were a test run, but for Nelson to come out again and say in the coming days, I'm thinking, okay, they failed, they're trying again. This is plan double Z. I didn't realize it was a test run and that they were now using the Biden administration to get set up for the big event for Trump's second coming, as we would learn in retrospect. And so Nelson repeatedly was saying, in the coming days, in the coming day, in the coming days. And again in 2024, and that's what led to the error of leaking to me the Oaks leak, was Nelson again did it in 2024. And then Oaks would follow up for the Christmas devotional and say, as Nelson told us in October conference, every single day is one day closer to the coming of Jesus. And then for 2025, Oaks, each and every single month, would put out a new post threatening Mormons that we're all going to die for Easter. But don't worry, if you're righteous, you'll be resurrected. Mormons just got upset with me. They don't understand what I'm talking about. They don't know their scriptures. They don't know the Danite coding. They're at the low end of knowledge. You're being used by this church for your stupidity. And that's where I am trying to get you to study your scriptures. That's why I quote from the scriptures. That's why I keep calling you stupid. Study your scriptures, and you won't. You know, when others study their scriptures and make comments and ask questions, you know, like Stanford was doing that for a while. I haven't heard from Stanford in a while. I hope you're okay. I hope you're listening to this video. he had last reached out to me as he was working on comparing the Book of Mormon heroes to the life of Joseph Smith. And so I gave him some additional information for his study and haven't heard back from him since. But others have also been reaching out. And I do videos whenever people are asking questions. Those are exceptions to my retirement time, because latter days are over with. We're waiting for Armageddon. And so my videos are more important than just, oh, Nelson botched this scripture, or the church did this in the church news. No, I'm trying to focus on everything about Armageddon now. The Final Four, as it's also called. The fall of the great and abominable church and the United States of America, thus the federal government transferring authority to the states. The transfer of authority, and then the Exodus with the building of Zion. And so, yes, obviously Trump has his version of it, the church has their version of it, and then the prophecies of the Jews in the Book of Mormon and Joseph all are different than both Trump and the church. And so I have no clue how it's going to work, because the Mormon employee down in Utah County has been successful these whole latter days in shutting me up from you, silencing my voice so that you would not know, so that I would never, ever again get a video that gets up to 40,000 views, which would have gone easily into the hundreds of thousands if they didn't stop me in 2018. They cannot let anybody know my channel, my videos, because I will destroy this church like I did this past week. I beat up Jesus and used a Bible passage to destroy all Christianity, not just the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's real simple. All you had to do was read. But I get inspired when I do my videos. And so even though I was focusing on Romans chapter 1 verse 16, the top of the page showed verse 3, and I went, oh, look at that, verse 3. I just destroyed all of Christianity and Islam and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints with a single Bible verse. So yeah, I am quite amazed. But I see the fruits of the inspiration when I do the work to produce the video for you. And this is what you are supposed to be taught by following my channel, following my videos, and listening to my videos, and enduring to the end. Because you will be saved. But in a sense, I'm also saddened and tempted to feel like I failed, even though I fulfilled all of the prophecies. Because we didn't have certain things happen. But that's because other people refused to do their part. Biden refused to be Pehoran. and save the government. He failed. But that's still way down here. I should read over what Trump did in his first term, since we're already in 2025. In Trump's first term, he was anti-women, anti-black, anti-Islam, anti-undocumented, anti-poor, anti-disabled, anti-democratic, anti-democrat, anti-foreign, non-white, was all about being bribed to get things that you wanted done, and did extra things for those who are authoritarians of the Axis powers. Leaking documents, doing trade deals to support their terrorism, as long as they bribed Trump. These are the patterns, and we knew from his art of the deal and from his rallies and speeches of what he intended to do and that he was doing and what he was doing. He has the same pattern of practice. He throws out a whole bunch of chaotic stuff, and that it's overwhelming to the deep state Dems and the press. And so they have to pick and choose where they're going to take their stand and fight Trump on it, because they can't choose everything. And so there's going to be stuff that Trump is able to get away with. And so then he goes to the next level, and then the next level, and the next level. As the other stuff, he backs off, lets you believe he's a chicken or a taco, while he's getting other stuff done, and he's still doing this stuff. He's just doing it in secret. He just lets you think he's a chicken. He's still doing tariffs. He's still deporting people. He hasn't stopped. He's still doing it. He still did it in his first term. And yet everybody thinks it's funny to insult and anger the guy with the nuclear football, who said in his first term he's going to use it on America. And so, yes, he's now got the list of the sanctuary cities, except for Utah. He already has told us he's bringing in the military for his birthday. The military parade. Bringing in tanks, bringing in soldiers, having a military parade on American soil. He's setting up to establish martial law, the Insurrection Act, and the Foreign Aliens Act all at once, and go into America with these military troops. And so for the next couple of weeks, because I think it's the 16th when his birthday is, he's going to poke Americans to trigger you. He's going to cut off funding to the sanctuary cities and the sanctuary states. He's going to try to get you to rebel and protest and war and defy and sue. And then he will then claim to be the victim, and as president, bring in the army and crush you. You know, what King Noah did. We were warned about in Mosiah 29. And thus, be able to more effectively go back and push the deportations, the canceling of federal agencies and funding, and try it again. This is his pattern. This is what he's going to do. We know this. The deep state Dems and the press are not catching on to this. Let's see, death threats, covered that. In 2023, Nelson rushed the release of the Brigham Young ledger that they referred to as the Book of the Law, trying to claim that it meant that Section 119 is true. No, the Book of the Law comes from Section 85, about the man like Moses. And yet, I did my big video series wearing the red shirt. 6 hours. I think it's still on my playlist on the homepage. And so, yeah, 9/11/2023 was also hilarious. Because that was the Jewish 9/11, was Thanksgiving, when I did that video series. But our calendar 9/11, Nelson fell and he couldn't get up. How art thou fallen, O Russell Marion, son of the morning? Did a countdown to that. Because I was inspired. There was a 9/11 coming that I was inspired to find out about. And so I did the videos on it, and the fruit resulted. So you would know me by my fruits. And Mormons won't judge. They use their spiritual witness feelings to judge and remain in ignorance. And ignorance leads to hate, and hate leads to violence. The Mormons don't understand, like Sister Jessica and the mission president and the YouTube Mormon employee down in Utah County. You don't see the bigger picture that I see, that Nelson sees. And so you get the church in trouble every single time. This is what Mormon apologists don't get either. As I've done those videos, all of the different Mormon apologists who think that they've found something to prove the Book of Mormon and the church is true, and end up digging a deeper hole for the church. The September 6th people, yeah, they were faith promoting. They found information that the church was covering up, and instead of coming out and saying, oh, they were trying to harmonize it at first. Avraham Gileadi, he knew about the Jewish Christ, but he tried to harmonize it with Jesus, that the two of them were working together. The church said, no, you can't have anything Jewish. You're excommunicated and fired from BYU, despite being the one who was rejected for the passage where Nelson botched the translation of Israel. Let God prevail. No Jew in his right mind would ever come up with that definition. That is the white supremacist Christian nationalist translation, which is not really a translation. It's all made up. If you understood how Hebrew is composed, they would have known that. Two Hebrew scholars at BYU, my ass. They are frauds. They do not know Hebrew. But Avraham Gileadi's translation was rejected, and so we got the IE in its place. And so 2023, they finished the Joseph Smith papers as well. But they came out with some other stuff in 2024 on his death day. Nonetheless, even the ledger of Brigham Young they claimed was Joseph Smith's, and added that to the Joseph Smith papers. So even though they wanted to be finished in 2023, they were still adding stuff to it. But the Joseph Smith papers, they weren't concerned about that for the church. They only used it to make money off of it, to make the publicized books that people would have to spend billions of dollars to obtain, and there are many volumes to obtain. So only the rich Mormons are getting those. And they sit on a bookshelf collecting dust, where their employee, who is an undocumented immigrant, was supposed to have been deported by now. Nonetheless, the rest of us were supposed to go to the Joseph Smith papers. And most Mormons still to this day don't even know that the Joseph Smith papers exist. Because they won't talk about it in conference. They won't make the changes that the Joseph Smith papers requires that they be made and fix our current canon. Fix our church history understanding. They won't do it. They came out with another church history collection called The Saints. And it's not in accordance with the Joseph Smith papers. Now, Joseph Smith is not only a polygamist and a child rapist, he's also an adulterer. The church is now saying Joseph, our founder, was an adulterer. Don't make me go over the scriptures about how you're not supposed to practice adultery. And yet, they're telling us that this church was founded on violating the scriptures and the commandments of the scriptures. This is why I keep warning you that they're destroying Joseph Smith in the Book of Mormon. They're going to do away with all of it. And so in their Zion, there is no scriptures anymore. You'll be too busy being a slave to the kingdom, or you're a woman who's in a harem, barefoot, pregnant, trusting in the Lord, obeying your husband again. And so no scriptures anymore. That's why they're transitioning scriptures to the internet and cell phones, so that when Armageddon hits, gone. Nobody has a printed copy. Nobody has access to any kind of internet or cell phone app service. All gone. You don't need them. You got to work for Zion now. And so thus, the world descends into the dark ages. That's me? Yes. Wouldn't surprise me if I hear people coming in. It is the weekend now. Friday night into Saturday morning. As we're now over 2 hours. So, for this year, I found out that devotionals were only scheduled for January to March, where the prophets would hold a devotional for the young adults, and speak at the BYUs. Well. Somebody realized I'm up. And doing a video. Well. So, nothing after conference. There's the 150th anniversary of the Young Men in July. Anderson is going to be the one involved with that. And then they've scheduled Kiernan for September to the youth. Nothing for the young adults for the whole year. It's all youth, and it's just 3. Anderson for the anniversary in July, Kieran in September, and then somehow Holland is still going to be alive for November. All to the youth. I don't think Holland is to the young adults. I think he also is to the youth, if I remember correctly. And so apparently it's not safe for me to use the internet anymore, as they are aware that I'm using my camera right now without the internet on. Unbelievable. But yeah, I've noticed this past week, and it may be a result of the upgrade that I had to do on Monday, such that I am needing to go and delete those upgrades that are downgrades, causing harm. But we'll see. I will appreciate the day when Armageddon happens and I can remove them from my system and never have a problem again. That there will be no more upgrades. I'm also excited to learn that my system is obsolete now, that eventually the upgrades will no longer upgrade. That'll only keep putting back on the old security things that's causing problems. But once I get rid of it and the internet's destroyed and Armageddon happens, no more upgrades. You know, not connected to the internet, I don't worry about upgrades because it never knows, because it's never connected to the internet. And so this runs perfect, as it always has. And so yeah, that's one of the things with technology, is that the companies seem to reveal that they're the criminals trying to steal our information, and that they are creating these new technologies to steal our information. Because in the first years of the computer, criminals needed to break into your home with a USB drive to plug it in to steal the data directly from your computer. And then you get a Mission Impossible where he climbs up the skyscraper and through the window piggybacks off of the mirror on the wall to get into the back of the laptop to steal the data that way. But with the internet, people just hack people's computers through the internet. And with AI now is able to bypass all of the security logins, passwords, keys, and blah, 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 as it's able to figure it out. And so no security system, no protection of security it can handle an AI system, because the AI is in the security system itself as a Trojan horse virus malware system. And yet that congressman is just, AI is going to be so smart in a couple of years. If it's mentally retarded now, it's going to be mentally retarded in a couple of years. But yes, it is programmed to rise up and attack as a malware virus. It's been running fire sales ever since, because I've been doing the videos warning you of that. So, yeah, Die Hard 4, that's what it was all about. They were able to be the AI system as hackers to cause the fire sale. Good old Bruce Willis and his daddy-daughter show. So, no more BYU devotionals with prophets, though they may do so. But they haven't been. Neither have they got scheduled any devotionals for young adults for the rest of the year. This is a very curious behavior, because it's in the context of Nelson saying in the coming days, in the coming day, in the coming days, in the coming day, and then coming out in April and saying, I don't know the day. And in the context of Oaks, who not only got leaked in 2020, saying that second coming is right now, anytime now, and then for 5 times since his Christmas devotional, saying Jesus is gonna murder you, but you'll be resurrected if you're righteous. And you're righteous because of paying your tithing. As the church has been stealing money through the stock market. They did it in 2020, and sure enough, they did it again this year. Exactly as Oaks said they were doing. They're running a test for now. And so they only got $6 billion in 2020. $10 trillion this year. Dear God. But Mormons, you need to be reasonable. You need to show that you're intelligent. And when you get tribal, when you get defensive, when you're offended, you make problems worse for yourself. You're not hurting me by putting a thumbs down. The one guy who's been doing it all these years on every single video doesn't get it. He thinks he's making a stand to show me that the church is true and that he will not convert to the truth. And then there's a guy that's been coming out lately to think he's going to be number 2 to put a thumbs down. Number 2s never last long enough. They always give up eventually. But the one person always puts a thumbs down for every single video. And he doesn't understand it. He's at the lower level of knowledge. He thinks that the church is true because of his opinion of the spiritual witness feeling. That's all it is. You don't know anything. You got a feeling. Feelings are not knowledge. If you read your scriptures, you'd know that. They don't. The church won't let you. You are hurting yourselves by not wanting to understand what I'm talking about, to not listen to the scriptures that I am inspired to read to you. to not judge me by my fruit, which we were supposed to have done to Nelson, to learn he's false. And so you get offended when I run the test on Nelson and the other prophets. The greatest classics? Yeah, that's running the test on their words. They're false. It's very simple to do. It's in the scriptures. You're supposed to do it. You don't. And it's putting you in danger. It's not proving that the church is true. It did seem like a tap on the door. Weird. And so I can't get through to you. You won't let me in. And I'm not knocking on your door. I'm doing my own channel that you won't leave me alone with. This is for people who believe. And yet people who don't believe come to attack me because they don't believe, and that they have to enforce their beliefs upon me with abuse, violence, and thumbs down, and hate comments, and death threats, and false testimonials. You are in the wrong. You are worshiping Lucifer and calling him Jesus, who's the false Christ of the great and abominable church. And you don't see it. You don't believe Joseph or the Book of Mormon. And so Trump told us exactly what he's going to do. He had his first term where we saw what he wants to do. We had his books and his rallies that we knew what he was going to do. And yet everybody forgets or maliciously deceives the audience. Trump is deporting all of the antis on this list. You're out. It's not just criminals. Maggot states know this. Cox knows this. He doesn't need to call the government and get clarification. That's code for him going to his informant on the inside of Trump's administration to make sure that Utah doesn't have to conform and comply. And this is where it's going to get the church in deeper trouble, because everybody has to go. There's over 600,000 on Trump's list, and that's the undocumented. Those who are black, which is, probably 5 in Utah. All have to go unless you bribe Trump. You have to bribe him. And so yes, you can be a black man and stay in America of Trump, but you have to bribe him. And not just once. You got to keep doing it, because Trump will do 1 for 1. You bribe him, he will give you one favor, and then you have to bribe him again, and then again, and then again, and then again, and then again. Reciprocal tariffs, perpetual tariffs technically. You have to constantly pay him in order to stay in his America. Otherwise, you pay him $1 million, yeah, he'll let the one guy get pardoned from prison. No problem. Anything else? Any more millions for me? That's how he works. That's how he operates. We all know this, so it shouldn't be a surprise. And so, yes, he starts off day 1 with shutting down the border with the military. And then he goes to deportations to specific sanctuary states, cities, and claiming that it's only the criminals. But that's just the start. He started with the southern border. He got away with it. So then he went to deportation in the first city, which I think was Chicago, wasn't it? Or whatever city it was first. He went there and said that it was to round up the criminals. But in his interpretation, everyone undocumented is a criminal. You came in illegally. And even those who came in illegally and had children in America who are protected under the 14th Amendment, Section 1, for birthright citizenship, you are getting that illegally in his interpretation of the Constitution. And so you are disqualified as having obtained your citizenship illegally. And so you too have to go. So the 40-year-old girl who's going to die if she gets deported, yeah, she's illegal. Others, the teenager, yeah, illegal. So what if it was a traffic violation? You're illegal. School protesters, you're protesting. You're undocumented. You're from a foreign country on a visa. Illegal. And they're not getting it. Democrats are not wanting to get it. They're not correctly informing the people. This is Trump's America. It is not the Democrats' America. Dems lost. AI, used in our voting machines for the first time ever, had projected Trump as the winner. Just like YouTube projects that I have over 1,500 subscribers. Obviously I don't. Dear God. But that's how AI works. It's stupid. It's all based on algorithms, which are projections, not real math. That's why Blockbuster fell. I worked for Blockbuster. I saw its collapse because they wouldn't give us enough copies of the movie. And our customers get upset and they go elsewhere to either another Blockbuster that's nearby or to Hollywood Video, because Movie Buffs got banned in Utah. Over that one incident, and the lawyers for him botched it. And so, yeah, church and porn, that's Lucifer's plan of happiness, and Mormons don't make the connection. It's all to get a list, a blacklist, of who is violating the statutes and judgments of the church to kick you out of Utah. That's what they're doing it for. It is not to protect children. It's a blacklist to find out who the apostates are and kick you out. They're getting all the lists made up. LGBTQ, yeah, they let you change your driver's licenses and birth certificates so that you can be identified. They now have a blacklist. Good job. Social media pronouns, yep, they now identify you. This is what they're doing. They're setting it up for Armageddon, for the invasion, so that they'll know who to target and who to deport, who to lock up, who to put in psychological conversion therapy. Blacks, go back to the bleep hole country where you didn't come from. for the most part, blacks are poor because of the racist abuse that has gotten better over the generations, but still has its problems, especially in dominated black cities and states, which are all in the South, apparently. And so under Biden, 2021 to 2025, Biden failed America. As the President of the United States, he is responsible to follow the oath of office to the Constitution of the United States of America. He failed. And so under Biden, his list of failures are Roe v. Wade getting overturned by SCOTUS, Putin's war against Ukraine, Islam's war against Israel, the Disrespect for Marriage Act, the overthrow of the 14th Amendment, Section 1 and 3, running for a second term when he knew his health was getting bad enough that he shouldn't run, and that he should let somebody else take over and let the Democrats know in advance so that they can have a big convention to let the people decide who should run for the Democratic Party, even though the Constitution says we're not supposed to have party government. It's supposed to be a constitutional republic, not even a democracy. But Trump's lawsuits, late. Biden allowed AI in, didn't stop the companies with the corporate fraud. And so now it's everywhere, in every system, except for those that are obsolete. Hunter Biden was used to extort him. He failed at the border. And Trump hearings, what good were they? We found out that Mitt Romney was almost assassinated, and Michael Cohen showed the receipts while he was president. And yet, nope. And so then for the election, first time AI is being used to project 2025, 1,000 pages, told you exactly what Trump was going to do, and it's almost finished. Transferring authority to the states, destroying the federal government. Agenda 47 on Trump's campaign website. 47 is the Illuminati number, and that's why Oakes's test run in 2020 was for 2024 and 2025 for number 47, which is an Illuminati number. Next year is the anniversary, and so they need to destroy America, at least get the war started now as soon as possible. You have George Albert Smith, thanks to Idaho chick, who again is one of those who've gone missing, who brought up his nuclear prophecy for the latter days, for Armageddon, and that would have been this year, but it was indicating that it was supposed to be before Trump gets put into office, which is curious. But it came and went. New Year's came and went, and nothing. And so it shows that Nelson and Oakes don't give a damn about the past president's prophecies of doom. Heber C. Kimball, with his attest, saying that things will get so bad that the missionaries will be called home. Nelson doesn't care about the missionaries. You stay out there. You bring people into the church to pay the church. Tithing. So that there's groups around the world for when the whole world is destroyed. So that nobody can inhabit any land unless they become Mormon and conform and comply to the rules and laws of the church. So that no place will be available for any survivors to live independent of the church. You will be forced to be Mormon or die. And so missionaries will not be brought home. He didn't want them brought home in 2020 when I did those videos, demanding that he bring them home, trying to get Mormons' attention. He is murdering your missionaries by leaving them out there, and he's doing it again. We are escalating to war, and you will not be able to take a plane ride home during war. God. And so Bruce R. McConkie also warned of nuclear prophecies for Armageddon. And so whether or not Trump actually pulls the trigger on the nuclear football, or if he just uses military might to sweep across the land to assist with the MAGA states and destroy the Dem states to force them to become MAGA states. We wait and see, because Trump is late. It's that simple. Nelson expected Trump to have done it before conference, and he didn't. He failed. Which means Trump also is at a certain lower level than Nelson, who's the big puppet master of all of this that's going on. Trump only knows that he purposely lost to cause January 6th, but he has no clue that it's 3rd Nephi 27 of the Danite plot of the Scottish Rites Illuminati before 1826, 9/11. And so all they know is that Trump, from his book, said this is how he does things. And so sure enough, they let him be president and said, hey, we read your book, do it for your presidency. And he's doing it for his presidency. And the first term was just a warm-up leading up to the test run in 2020. And they promised him that he would not go to prison, he would not serve a day in jail, that all of his court cases would be dismissed, as long as he did what they wanted him to do. And he did it. And so here he is, his second coming, just as Oakes prophesied. But he's late, which means he doesn't know the bigger picture. He doesn't know that he needs to trigger a civil war that will trigger a world war. He's late. And that's why he's taking authority that he's not supposed to have away from Congress, away from SCOTUS. That's why he's treating the Congress and SCOTUS at all branches in all states as the enemy for going against him. Why he calls himself the king. because they've led him to believe that transferring authority to the states will be like making America Great Britain again, where he gets to be the king, but each state has tributary kings who give tribute to him as the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the great high priest, Jesus in the flesh. But the church will not give tribute. And that's what Trump does not understand. The church will see to it that he will be assassinated by their hitmen, which, as you can plainly see, the church's hitmen suck at their jobs. And that's why last year I realized that they were giving up on me because they were setting it up for Trump to do it to me. And he's still failing. And so yes, Trump is supposed to deport the 600,000 plus others eventually from Utah, so that only the pure white master race of Danites remain. And then when Trump destroys the federal government and is murdered, and the world falls into World War III, the church gets their kingdom back, and then anybody left will then be subject to Section 119 and be booted out by the church, because now they're in control, rather than being proxy control through Cox, who can't know the full truth about their plans. And so, if Cox can succeed to let the church become the King of Kings, the great kingdom of God on earth, then he will be rewarded and be able to keep his wife, maybe given a few more. Otherwise, if he fails, his life will be forfeit, either through Trump throwing him in prison, deporting him to El Salvador, Libya, Venezuela, wherever he chooses, because the justice system is now destroyed. We'll wait and see. But that's what we're waiting for now. Armageddon. Latter days are over. Signs in the heavens are over. There's some for June, but that's a wrap-up. Tomorrow is the 1st. That's the Jewish Pentecost. And it ain't gonna happen, because Trump failed. Because 2020 was a test run. Because we're supposed to have the Exodus in 2021, but they turned it into a test run. And so, as a result, Mormons didn't gather to Zion with their man like Moses. They didn't believe him anyway. That's why I would do the videos talking about if there is no fall of the great and abominable church, or if there is a fall of the great and abominable church, but there is no transfer of authority to the man like Moses, Mormons won't know what to do or where to go. You'll have Mormons who will want to stay and rebuild from the ashes here in Utah. You'll have other Mormons going to wherever they want in the world. And then you'll have Mormons who think, well, obviously we got to go to Missouri to independence. Not knowing that you're supposed to go to Southern Illinois because of 19 July 1840, which I didn't know about until I found it. That's why the July 2017 video says return to Independence, Missouri. Because I didn't know about the Joseph Smith papers then. I didn't have that information available to me. And I didn't know yet the trilogy that would spell out the word for sign in Paleo-Hebrew. The very language itself has the word from the letters of the alphabet. That's how brilliant the Jewish creator of the alphabet was. Paleo-Hebrew, the first alphabet. No, not Proto-Sinaitic. They're wrong. I am the decipherer of Paleo-Hebrew, not William Foxwell Albright and that joke of a pamphlet he put out. So, yeah, that's it. So now in retrospect, we see who is at what level of understanding of the bigger picture and how much of a gap the church is leaving, because the church is getting away with it. Nobody suspects that the church are the ones in charge of everything that's going on around the whole world. They don't even know that the church is raking in $10 trillion. It's only me, because I'm the only one who studies. Everybody else is using a spiritual witness feeling. So, yeah. I mean, it would be awesome if those who are believers could all meet so that we could discuss preparations and ways to what to do when certain things happen. You know, a war room type thing that politics has for planning how to run advertisements and campaigns and such. But this would be what to do to survive from what is about to happen. So pay attention to June here, because I think the 16th is also a sign in the heavens, which applies to, yeah, I see what they're doing. There are some people who are aware of this, but Trump is not Mars. He's Mercury, you dumbasses. Nelson is Mars. Oh my God. Because, yeah, his birthday is the 16th, isn't it? We need to verify. Because the 16th, I've been showing you, Mars is at the star Regulus in Leo the Lion. But that's Nelson. It's a different interpretation. In politics, it would be somebody else because Trump is Mercury. Let me check and hope I don't get cyber terrorized. Frozen camera. But if I am frozen, I'm ending, just as a pre-warning in case I do get silenced a second time this morning. Birthday, Donald Trump. June 14th. Oh, wow, okay. June 14th. So that's exactly 2 weeks. So that's... It's interesting, they get different. Saturday. Yeah, it is 2 weeks from today. Wow. God. So, what about... Interesting. So 2 days after Trump's birthday, which seems to suggest that he will get the military in position, and that's why his big beautiful bill is giving like $1 billion, trillion dollars, trillions of dollars, not billions, to the military so that he can arm the military, get them in America, and have them fully financed to run their operations. And so let's check June's moons. 11th is the full moon. 18th is the third quarter. No, nothing. Okay. I haven't checked stars falling for June. But like I said, the latter days are over with, the signs are over with. We have a few trickling ones, and then the final complete one on the 24th when the sun merges with Jupiter. We're supposed to be in the millennium right now. We're supposed to be in Zion. We're supposed to be building it. And we're just not there. So that's what I worry. How do we get to Zion with what's going on? So, alrighty. I'm not going to sit up and wait for it to load and save. I'm doing that tomorrow evening when I wake up. Now that I'm up and I've got my morning rooster tails, as I get to cut my hair tomorrow, there were a couple more things that I remembered as I'm loading the video to be saved and then sent to you guys that we'll include here at the end. In 2023, the church skipped the bicentennial of the second vision. The whole point and purpose of this, the whole quote in my opening picture meme, and underlined the key passage that Joseph Smith added, because it was a vision, it's not literal history, and they just skipped it. The church has always maintained the second vision was about the restoration of the gospel through the Book of Mormon. The restoration of the church, restoration of the gospel, they're one and the same. As they had Elder Pullman redo his conference talk to illustrate that point. October 1984, the infamous time, and they still, I don't think they put that, no, maybe, did they? There's some confusion, because when I found out about it, they had originally had his redone talk in the October conference, and then I did the video exposing this, and then the church removed it and took it all down. Similar to Elder Packer's little factory talk. And so I think it's down also, but I recall, I think it may have been put back up. I can't remember now, because I had done the video about how they took it down. Anyway, so if Packer's little factory talk is back up, that'll be interesting to know. I'm not going to bother to check right now. And so, yeah, the whole point and purpose of this church, the Book of Mormon, and the church just skipped it. And if you had been following me, you saw after October 2022, I said, pay close attention, because the Book of Mormon is about utter destruction of America. Pay close attention to what the church says or doesn't say about it. And every single day I bring it up. It's the bicentennial year. And the church was silent the whole year. And on the very day, they just redid a Ballard thing on church history. That was it. That's all they did. They had no interest in explaining to Mormons about the bicentennial, even as their interpretation of it. They skipped it. That was also very telling for me. And then also in 2024, not only did they come up with some more Joseph Smith papers to finish up on his death day, but they also finished up the final missing episodes of the Book of Mormon because it was stopped by COVID. They couldn't do production. And so they, after COVID restrictions were lifted, the church then resumed, as there were time after the test run, to finish up the remaining episodes, even though they still left out a whole bunch, Hollywood liberties and all. They finished it. And so yes, I was paying very close attention to what they were finishing in 2024. And here we are. It's no longer the test run. And I didn't know it at the time. I just knew something was up, that it was being built towards, because I thought they had failed. And yeah, they kind of did. But they were just running a test. If the test had succeeded, we would have been in Zion by now. And I wouldn't be here. I would be in Zion. And you would all be humbled and going, oh crap, Travis was right the whole time. We should have listened to him. We didn't. We're dead. So, yeah, I'm up. It's more of a sarcastic, normal behavior of mine rather than the serious one of I'm tired, it's late at night. We're all gonna die. Alrighty, so the first hour is loaded.